Okay. Got a couple things. One, a reference back to Passover. In Dubai and Abu Dhabi, 2,000 Jews came to attend Seder.
Wow.
Thank you. That is absolutely the appropriate response, Susie. Yes.
A lot of pasta.
2,000 Jews. In previous years, there were a handful of attendees, and the Sedarim were conducted in secret. And this year, we've talked about the Abraham Accords, normalization agreements, the UAE and Israel. 2,000 Jews attended Seder in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So, you know, that's a freestanding fact. It's kind of, the world is changing and sometimes for the better. Next, in another good news, but I hope you weren't holding your breath. The Church of England apologized this week for anti-Jewish laws that were passed 800 years ago. So I am hoping you didn't, you know, like hold your breath because it could have been uncomfortable. The laws 800 years ago led to the expulsion of Jews from the kingdom for hundreds of years. So a special service was held in Oxford. The British chief rabbi, the Archbishop of Canterbury, observing an event that occurred in 1222. And in case any of you wish to ask, no, I was not there. 1222. No, I was definitely not there. The thing in 1222, it's fun, forbid social actions between Jews and Christians, special taxes on Jews, having Jews wear an identifying badge. It didn't just start with the Nazis and the yellow star, okay? 1222, UK, they were forcing Jews to wear special badges. They were banned from some professions, banned from building new synagogues. And then in 1290, all of England's Jews were expelled. You might ask, my God, I mean, they focused so much attention on us. How many Jews were in the UK at that time? Would anyone like to ask that question? No.
How many Jews were in the UK?
Thanks, Susie. 3,000. In other words, it was
nothing.
A pathetically small group, but the need to focus attention, very strong. Cindy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, you had mentioned the head rabbi of England. How many countries have a head rabbi?
I don't know the answer to that as a specific thing. There are head rabbis. There is a chief rabbi in the UK. His name is, here it comes, Ephraim Mervis. How did I think of that? Okay, Ephraim Mervis. And he is the recognized chief rabbi of the UK, whom the conservative and reform Jews do not recognize. So he is the state recognized figure who has no authority or jurisdiction over reform and conservative Jews. He's a pretty, I don't want to say passive. He's been keeping things smooth. No big issues. He seems like a fairly decent fellow. In any event, this Church of England thing, the head of the church said, today's service is an opportunity to remember, repent, and rebuild. Let's pray that our move today inspires Christians to reject contemporary anti-Judaism and anti-Semitism. Interesting that he correctly separates the two, and to appreciate and receive the gift of our Jewish neighbors. So much for the Archbishop of Canterbury, and happy for that. And then the last short one, I'm pleased to indicate that people entering Disney World in Florida have been greeted over the past several days with swastika flags flying near the entrance. And we need to issue a formal message of thanks to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has issued no statement regarding the incident. So, you know, things are a little better in the UK, things are a little bit worse in Disney World, and we go forward. Any questions on this before we take up what will be the major thread today? We're going to talk about abortion. And okay, Brad.
Yeah, I was just wondering what precipitated this change in England. Why now? Why is this just happened?
It's a very interesting question. Nothing that I have other than, oh, here, well, the date was exactly 800 years ago. It was the 800th anniversary. I mean, you know, when you have a monarchy, things move more slowly. So they fixed it after 800 years. Any other questions, comments? Okay.
One more.
Brad.
You know, France also has a central rabbi, head rabbi, and they say that to have one person speak for the Jewish community has been very helpful in terms of relations. And they contrast that with the Muslim community, where there is not one person who can speak for the community. And so that gives rise to much more division. Do you have any thoughts on that? That it's not a bad idea to have a chief rabbi in a country?
You know, if maybe if they had elections and all the Jews were registered to vote and they could vote to choose a chief rabbi, maybe that would be a good idea. And actually probably stronger than maybe, Brad. It probably would be a good idea. But in this particular case, the chief rabbi is the rabbi selected by the body of Orthodox congregations in the UK, in which we have no say. And I mean, that's really it. That's really it. It works if we have a voice. Would it be a better idea? It might very well be a better idea, but this kind of change isn't going to happen. We know. Okay, please. Yes, I see Sylvia. Yes.
Who put up the swastika flags at Disney World and why are they still there?
They were put up by people unknown as of today, though I have seen on social media pictures of people standing next to the flags. And the assumption might be that they put them up, but they are taken down, put back up, taken down, put back up. And I have no idea whether they're there today or yesterday. But you know that Disney has been involved in a very, well, the governor is having a very serious confrontation with Disney.
Yeah.
And though Disney was not Jewish,
He was an anti-Semite. Walt Disney himself was a raving anti-Semite.
but the financial chief of Disney is a Reform Jew, member of Wilshire Boulevard Temple, who for many years was the financial boss of Disney. And many of the programs within Disney involve people who are Jewish. Why would they choose to do it? I think it's probably more of an attack on Disney than it is an attack on Jews. But
All right,
I don't know. I don't know.
thank you.
We have, by the way, I want to thank you because it makes me very comfortable when you submit requests to talk about a given topic on current events. I think that's great. Thank you. It not only demonstrates your interest, but allows me to make certain that I'm addressing things that are of interest to you. So that the few of you, this more than several of you who suggested abortion, thank you very much for that. This is not an easy topic. I actually have prepared, what do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, 7 pages. And of course, we're not going to get it all. I did prepare. Why did I prepare? Because the topic is not, as we say in Hebrew, muvan me'elav, it is not self-understood. There's a lot of misunderstanding and quickly made assumptions about what the Jewish attitude toward abortion is. I had the occasion, Risa and I had lunch with the immediate past president of the Women of Reform Judaism yesterday. And the WRJ is very, very strong on opposing what the Supreme Court is highly likely to do, and then the repercussions that will flow from it, because it won't stop there. There will be other things happening. And because I knew that I was discussing with you today, I asked her, so you have all this activity supporting a woman's right to control her body, abortion rights, whatever we call it. What is the Jewish attitude toward abortion? And without quoting, the general statement is, well, we're far more open than the Catholic Church, and we're much more liberal on the topic. And what was it, Porgy and Bess? It ain't necessarily so. Things are not quite that simple. So what I'd like to do, and this is not usual style, I would like to put before you the Orthodox traditional view. Okay? Then we'll talk about it and respond. And no, this is not the Reform or conservative view, but I think it's good that we have the traditional view. Okay. There is a Rabbi Avi Shafran. He's always been out there, who heads the Agudat Yisrael, which is the very far right Orthodox establishment. He is always in the press and on social media with all kinds of statements. Quote, blanket bans on abortion, to be sure, would deprive Jewish women of the ability to act responsibly where abortion is halachically required. So the Agudat Israel long promoted the regulation of abortion through laws that generally prohibit the unjustifiable killing of fetuses while protecting the right to abortion in exceptional cases. That's an overview. Now, this. Jewish law states that the individual's claim to life is controlling. Jewish law states that the individual's claim to life is controlling, even in the cases of, and now I'm quoting, monster births, illegitimate children, or rapes. Once again, I say, Jewish law states that the individual's claim to life is controlling, even when there is monster births, illegitimate children, or rape. That is the Orthodox position. Let us not pretend it is otherwise. In the 1980s and 1990s, I was very heavily involved in medical ethics. While I was here in, I can say that, when I was here in Atlanta, I served on the ethics committee of the CDC. And so we had all kinds of ethical issues that we were dealing with, and I became, I guess, conversant, and I learned to respect the writings of a Dr. Jacobovitz, spelled with a K. If you want to Google away and look at Dr. Jacobovitz on abortion, you will find mainstream, not extremist, Orthodox teachings about abortion. So that's a very reliable source. Jewish law assumes that a fetus's claim to life, full title to life, begins only at birth. Full title to life only at birth. There is a warning to that statement because even birth is not really adequate, because Jewish law stipulates that the baby should be 30 days old before it could be, God forbid, buried in a Jewish cemetery. The baby must be 30 days postpartum before all benefits of life as any other living human being belong to that baby. So that's one clear statement. Now, when I read this, it's only because I prepared, and since I prepared, I'm going to afflict you with it. If a woman is in hard labor and her life cannot otherwise be saved, I'm quoting the Talmud, one cuts up the child within her womb and extracts it member by member, because her life comes before that of the child. But if the greater part, now the rabbis differ, some say the head, some say the arms, like they differ. But if the greater part is delivered, one may not touch the baby, for once the baby is emerging into life, that life has the same value as the mother. You may not kill the baby to save the mother. This ruling approves what is called embryotomy, to save the mother. The not yet born child is called a rodef, a pursuer. And Jewish law always permits the taking up of physical force against a rodef. So if the mother pregnant and the baby's presence in the womb is directly threatening the mother's life and nothing else could be done, embryotomy. You may even cut the baby up to save the mother's life. When the baby emerges into life, that is to say, the head, shoulders, whatever, are out, then the baby may not be injured to save the mother's life. The baby's life is the full value of the mother. Thus, the only indication in this text for abortion is the direct threat of the mother's life by the baby, the fetus, and if there is such a threat, abortion, embryotomy is not an option, it is an obligation. Do you get that? Okay? I am going to go on with more, but I think it's really important as we talk loosely about Jewish attitudes about abortion that we know what we're talking about. Now, let me just plunge forward. The status of a child conceived by rape is not discussed in the Talmud. But a baby produced through incest or adultery is. The interesting thing here is that if a woman is pregnant and condemned to death for a capital crime, you may not say delay the execution until the baby is born. Execution in Jewish law is never delayed, and it should not be delayed here. If the mother is pregnant and she's a convicted murderer, capital punishment is part of Jewish law. The mother is to be put to death regardless, ignoring the presence of the fetus. In that case, we see no distinction between what's termed a bastard or a legitimate fetus. Nope. However she got pregnant, it's not the issue. The issue is the baby has no claim to life until in the birth canal a little bit out, so that you don't delay the capital punishment. The Talmud says that to delay capital punishment, and I quote, is to open wide the invitation to immorality and debauchery. Now, interesting. Jewish law considers threat to a mother's life to include psychological threat. That's interesting. So it long recognized that by the 17th century, it was embodied in law. Threat to a mother's life can be physical, it can be psychological. It is extremely difficult to get a psychological approval for abortion. It would have to be very real. And again, 17th, 18th century already, attested to by the most competent psychiatric opinion and on the previous experience of the mother with mental imbalance. So there is an opening for an abortion if giving birth to that baby would seriously threaten the mother's psychological well-being. Now, I want to end with Jacob Bovitz's summary. And I'm going to quote, "Then we will be open for conversation. No civilized society could survive without laws which occasionally spell some suffering for individuals." Jacob Bovitz again, "Civilized society has laws and must have laws which occasionally spell some suffering for individuals. Nor can any public moral standards be maintained without strictly enforced regulations calling for extreme restraint and sacrifices in some cases. If the criterion for the legitimacy of laws, I want you to hear this, were to be the complete absence of cruel effects, if the criterion would be the complete absence of cruel effects, we should abolish or drastically liberalize not only our abortion laws, but here it comes, but our statutes on marriage, narcotics, homosexuality, suicide, and euthanasia, and numerous other laws which inevitably result in personal anguish from time to time." I emphasize this because I want to point out that the call for strictness to avoid drug addiction in a category that includes all narcotics, homosexuality, suicide, and euthanasia. So Rabbi Jacob Bovitz views homosexuality, drug addiction, suicide, euthanasia as all equal evils. And without laws in a civilized society which bring anguish to some and pain and suffering to some, but without such laws, no civilized society could survive. I stop. That's Jacob Bovitz's position. I think valuable to hear. Yes, please, Miriam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for what you said, Rabbi. Unfortunately, I came from a Zoom meeting, left that, and came late to this, so I did not hear the very beginning. I don't know if you read the quotation from Exodus or not. The two
Not
of those.
yet.
You
Not
did?
yet. Not yet.
Oh, okay, dear. Now, this is a feeling that I need to express, and perhaps you can help me with it. I feel that these 5 hideous, horrific, heinous, Nazi-like injustices of the Supreme Court, I call them injustices, went even further than the horrible things that they're trying to do, and which unfortunately they may succeed.
Miriam, I'm going
They are.
Miriam, I'm going to stop you here because the focus first is on what is the Jewish attitude.
Okay, but I'm going to finish in one sentence. Thank you. I feel that they're against freedom of religion because a Jewish woman can say to them, my Judaism lets me have an abortion if my pregnancy, having been raped by my father, if my pregnancy will do me great unharm, as you just mentioned, mentally, it doesn't have to be physical. I think the rabbis will agree that she should not bring this raped, incestuous child into the world or go through this. So my feeling is that this group is absolutely against freedom of religion, trying to impose their religion on Jewish women. Thank you.
You're wrong.
Good.
You're wrong.
Good. I want to be.
You got to really hear this. You didn't hear the beginning. That's why I'm presenting the Orthodox traditional position. And incest and rape are not grounds for abortion in Jewish law. Period. They are not. And I will be discussing Reform and Conservative, but my stand today was, before we go off on our political journeys, we have to say what is real and not what we want to be real. Okay, Brad.
Well, I just want to pick up on what Miriam said. I think she alluded to something in the Torah, or was it something in Exodus? What
Yes.
I'm trying to get at is you've talked about a Jewish law and the Talmud, et cetera, et cetera. If we go back to our text, the Torah, what language is there in the Torah addressing this issue?
If two men are fighting and they bump up against a pregnant woman in such a way that she loses the fetus, if she is killed, they are guilty of murder. The loss of the fetus requires a fine. That's all the Torah says about abortion. Now, Brad, what does that tell you?
Well, that tells me that the woman's life is valued more than the fetus's.
The fetus's life has no comparable value until the fetus is in the birth canal or beyond. I know this is uncomfortable, but that's what I rejoice in doing. It's people should. Am I opposed to what's going on in the Supreme Court? 1,000%. But I'm not going to stand up there and say, my religious tradition gives me the freedom to choose what I do with my body, because it doesn't. Okay, Harvey.
Actually,
Harvey.
I have a question. Is there any historical evidence that indicates that this bumping into a woman was perceived as an active act to cause the abortion of a child?
No, this was incidental. And it isn't viewed as seeking that she didn't run into the middle of a fight so that she could.
Right, no, I'm not asking that. I'm asking, is there any historical evidence that in ancient times, there was literally an accepted, what I'll call medical practice, whereby women who did not want their child actually engaged in some physical actions that would cause her to lose the child?
I am not able to speak to the ancient world. I can barely speak about the Jewish world. And within the Torah and within the Talmud, there are no references to abortion by choice with a professional or a medical or a, no, that's not there. Okay, I see Joanne.
Yeah, Rabbi, you spoke about laws sometimes harming groups of people. Laws will sometimes harm groups of people, and then you listed several of them. But I want to point out that the only one that affects women alone is abortion. All those other categories affect everybody, but abortion speaks only to women.
I just have to be really careful. You may not be able to see quotation marks in my speaking. We call those air quotes. But I was quoting the words of Rabbi Jacob Davids.
I understand that. I should have said
so
his
I
words,
just-
not
well,
yours.
I just want to be
No,
clear.
no.
Hey, you know
I
what the
understand- I
rabbi
understand
said? No, you're right. You're right. The abortion specifically, uniquely affects the well-being of a woman. But the other categories, just think about it. Jacob Davids in the 1980s, 1990s viewed abortion, homosexuality, drug abuse. What was the other category? All of those as identical. Euthanasia. I knew there was another. Euthanasia as identical. These are horrific things. And what's interesting to me is how social attitudes toward euthanasia, suicide, homosexuality, and even drug addiction have dramatically changed. What has not dramatically changed is Jewish law. Question, comment. Penina.
I am going to tell you something a little bit more comforting to everybody who listens about what's going on in Israel today, and it's been going for the last 20 years.
Okay, can we, Penina?
Yes.
We're going to get to Israel.
Okay.
Honestly, we will.
Can I
know
just
that-
finish?
No, hold off, because we will get to Israel and I will ask you. Okay? Because
Okay.
Israel is
I just wanted to say something that's happening there now today.
I
That's
know.
the opposite.
We're gonna hold. We're gonna do Jewish attitudes
Okay.
on
Okay,
abortion.
it is Jewish. It's in Israel. Okay, go ahead.
Any more questions on Jacob Davids? And if you will, a legitimate mainstream Orthodox position on abortion? Yes, please, Brad.
Oh, yeah, I want to come back to what the Torah tells us. And when the Torah says something about being fruitful and multiplying, is that the language, say, that Christians use to assert that the Bible expresses a viewpoint on abortion? Is it that language that they point to?
That's a fascinating question. The answer is, among other things, yes. Being fruitful and multiplying, that's the same kind of language you'd find within the Hasidic Jewish community. That 7, 8 kids, give birth until you drop is not only de rigueur, but it's a mitzvah. That's what a woman is for. Okay? It is for reproduction. And I want to say, though, that different groups have different philosophic bases for stating when life begins. When life begins is a universally debated topic. Is life the instant of conception? If that's the case, though I don't want to talk about court decisions yet, the morning after pill will be banned by the Supreme Court. Okay? The morning after pill will be viewed as murder.
Wow.
So for those people who believe that life begins at conception, that's the story. All the way to the Jewish view that full life is only there after 30 days after birth. I remember being with a family in a hospital with a desperately deformed child who could not possibly live, and they fought and struggled successfully with the doctors, in conjunction with the doctors, to keep the baby alive till the 30th day so they could give her a name and have her buried in a Jewish section of the cemetery. Risa.
In the name of our daughter Shoshana, who in all of these kinds of conversations likes her story told so that people understand that nothing is straightforward. She was pregnant with twins. One of the twins was deformed with no separation in the brain, and her presence was killing the other twin. And the Orthodox rabbis who had to be called in because of the Orthodox background of her husband were in a big debate if they could abort the deformed child in order to save the twin. And in the end, after 2 weeks of discussion, they finally gave permission that the baby who was injuring the other baby could be aborted. But it was a major, major discussion and not easy.
And the other baby just got admitted to medical school. Yes. Okay. That is the other end of the story. But she also bears permanent biological impact of that struggle, and the 2 weeks damaged her. And of course, I relate to that not nicely. Okay, please, Susie.
I just want to do some research. How does Jacob spell his last name?
Jako, Jacob Bovitz.
Bovitz, how do you spell that?
Bovitz, it's spelled the way you'd always spell Bovitz. Jakobovits. And his first name is Rabbi. Okay, I see Herb. Okay, you're good, I think. No, nothing. You're good. You're not marked as muted. Say something, Herb.
When one scratches one nose, doesn't mean they're asking to speak.
I didn't hear you. Please say it again.
No, I wasn't planning on speaking. I was just going to scratch my nose.
Ah, I saw a hand. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, good. Okay. Any other comments on what is the real, not desired, the real stance of traditional Orthodox Judaism on abortion? Nina.
Okay, it's not Okay, I'm going to just give one specific that it's allowed. In Israel, there are...
Oh, no, Penina, I will, no, we're
No,
not.
according to the Orthodox, okay.
We are
According to
not
the
in
Orthodox, I get it, I
Penina,
get it.
Penina, we are not in Israel yet.
Yes, I
promise
understand,
you,
okay.
I promise you.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. They are encouraging artificial insemination.
Okay.
As long as the
could we
father is not
please,
married.
Penina,
or the mother
I'm
is not
begging you, אני מבקש ממך להקשיב אליי. אני מבקש
According to the Orthodox.
לא להקדים את הנושא. לא להקדים עכשיו. אני מבקש.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Okay, now, actually, I told her who's going to win the Kentucky Derby, but we all know that happened last week, so that's not a problem. Now, I want to go to the conservative movement and the reform movement, and then to Israel.
Oh, okay.
I promised. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The conservative movement. First the conservative movement, then the reform movement. It is written, and I'll accept this description, that the conservative movement is somewhat more lenient. They claim to be halachic, and I use the word claim in quotation marks because they're not. But in any event, they claim to be halachic, and they extend the threat to the mother's life to psychological causes as well. Well, that actually came in the 17th, 18th century with the Orthodox, that's fine. In 1983, the conservative movement's rabbinic authorities permitted abortion, quote, if a continuation of pregnancy might cause the mother severe physical or psychological harm, but here's the extension, or when the fetus is judged by competent medical opinion as severely defective. Please notice that rape and incest are not included. Okay? So the conservative movement accepts, this is not innovation, severe psychological harm, and adds what Jacob Davids called a monster child. That's his language. I don't like it, but he calls that a monster child, a severely defective child. That's the conservative movement. 1958, the reform movement said abortion may be undertaken for the sake of the mother's mental well-being if there is strong preponderance of medical opinion that the child will be born imperfect physically or mentally. This is weird. It says for the mother's well-being, and then it defines what are the legitimate grounds for the mother's well-being. I find that very troubling. That's our movement. In other words, she can't have other psychological reasons other than her fear that the child will be born imperfect physically or even mentally. I think that is a very poor statement on our side. However, that was 58. In 85, the reform movement explicitly extended abortion approval to cases of rape and incest, while emphasizing opposition to abortion for trivial reasons or on demand. Opposes abortion. The reform movement officially opposes abortion on demand for what it calls trivial reasons, undefined. I'm going to go on. The movement explicitly, our movement, rejects abortion in cases where the birth might pose hardships for other family members. At the same time, with these legal conditions, both the Reform and Conservative rabbinates have been vocal in support of keeping abortion legal and accessible. They are dancing on both limbs. Dancing on both limbs. So when we talk about what the Jewish attitude is about abortion, be careful. On the one side, liberal, non-Orthodox Judaism expands the possibilities, attacks trivial reasons. That's the halachic side, the law. On the activist side, we officially fight for abortion rights, legal and accessible. And if you don't think that's a form of schizophrenia, you are wrong. And that's because the topic is complex. Now, Penina, what happens in Israel with abortion?
I wanted to say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to show the other side, okay, how they approach infertility. So you are allowed to get sperm from a donor for artificial insemination free because they would like to increase the population in Israel. And so they give it to you free, but as long as the father is not married or the mother is not married. So you can have a child out of wedlock.
Fine. What is abortion, though? Let's focus on abortion.
I said it's the other way around, that in order to be inseminated, the child has to be from a man that's not married, and the woman could be not married. So it's out of marriage. That's what I was trying to show you.
Okay.
So this is also something that you should explain, but it's happening there. Okay.
Now, Israeli women seeking to terminate a pregnancy and have it paid by the national health system. It's not just that an Israeli woman wants, needs, desires an abortion. She would like it paid by the normal national health insurance. She must appear before a 3-person committee. But the results of those committee meetings are 98% approval.
Okay.
Now, this is in a state with a chief rabbinate. This whole thing about abortion is incredibly complex and self-contradictory. In a Jewish state with an entrenched, politically connected Orthodox rabbinate, you go before a committee, that's demeaning. I don't mean to make light of it. I don't like it, but you go before a committee, 98% of the time, you are granted medically insured by the government, no cost. In the hospital, regular stuff, surgery. There are no laws in Israel limiting when an abortion can be performed. No laws limiting when. It doesn't say first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. Doesn't say, no law. And a woman whose request, the 2%, is denied by the committee can still seek an abortion at a private clinic. It'll cost her $1,000. There's no law against her doing it, but they're not going to pay for it. Estimates are that about half the abortions performed in Israel are done in private clinics. One of the reasons is that committee. Women feel demeaned by having to come before a committee and explain to 3 men why she needs an abortion. Okay. As of 2014, abortions were paid for entirely by the state for women aged 20 to 33, and subsidized abortions were granted for those outside that age range. An estimated quarter of American women will have an abortion by age 45. Here we are. You wanted to talk about abortion. I'm going to open it up for 2 minutes of quick comments on how you feel about what I shared with you. Please, okay? I see Sylvia, then Howard.
The thing is, you're talking about the religious perspective, which is fine, but what's going on in this country is political. It's political based on somebody else's religion, but it's still political. And I do think they're two separate things. And I think they need to be kept separate.
Quick answer, agree with you. I agree with you, but I try to, I guess, say, and probably not clearly, these laws and the court decisions are functioning under the pre-understanding as to when life begins. And a pre-understanding means they're operating in the political world with what they believe to be true. This is life.
But it's not what my religion believes to be true. It's kind of like the old Sunday blue laws, because Christians had to go to church, Jews couldn't go shopping on Sunday.
I know that completely. I know that my father went to court to get permission to open his delicatessen on Sunday because he agreed to close it on Saturday. Okay, you are right, but there it is. The pre-understanding, even though the justices will say law, constitution, whatever, in their heads is the notion ingrained from early religious training that life begins at conception. They may not even be aware of the source of that, but they operate with it. Susie.
Okay.
Abortion fully is with the woman. The woman. That's all we have been talking about. What about the fact that a man can walk into a doctor's office and get a vasectomy? Isn't that also keeping a fetus from even coming around?
Who makes the laws, Susie? The men.
I thought that the population did.
No,
Equally,
the men do.
men and the women, we all vote. I mean, nothing is ever said. Why doesn't the Supreme Court get rid of vasectomies?
Actually, I've met a few babies whose fathers thought that they had vasectomy. Okay.
But still,
Okay.
it's just
So-
it's so crazy.
Susie, you are right, and I can't change that. There is a difference between prior insemination and an inseminated ovum. And that is the difference here. That is to say, does life begin when the egg is fertilized? That the man is not observing Catholic doctrine by having more kids, that so far, the law doesn't touch. So far. Merle.
I was just going to say that I think it was Susie that just said something about we vote for these things. We only elect the senators and congressmen and local people, but they seem to make up their own mind as to how they want to vote. I don't think they really care. They want to be elected. I don't my personal opinion is they don't really care how we feel as the people that voted for them.
The
So,
greatest,
and I think that's what's causing half this problem.
the greatest mistake people made over the last number of presidential elections is to forget that one of the greatest privileges a president has is to name Supreme Court justices.
Exactly. And the Supreme Court, to me, I could be wrong, but what I've seen the last couple of years is that it's become so politicized that they're controlled. They don't make their own minds up. They take whatever they can get from everyone else, money-wise, and that's how they vote.
I actually believe, I hate to be in competitive cynicism with you, but
I don't
It's
know.
okay.
I actually believe that these people who lied in their hearings, who
Mhm.
lied, right?
Really lied.
That they believe that what they're doing is right. And I don't think it's for money. I think that these justices are part of a system, a group think. And okay, last point.
Okay.
I see Harv.
Yes, question. Is there anything in the Torah or the Talmud about the right to privacy? Is it somehow protected in Jewish law?
No.
Some kind of family privacy, maybe?
No, not like that. There are stringent laws against gossip. But I don't even know if privacy, pratiyut, I don't even know if that's a category anywhere. Really not. I'm sorry. Jews are very much a group phenomenon. And privacy pressure would be probably, now I'm reaching a little bit, probably not celebrated. I don't know, how are you feeling when you're leaving this? I know how I'm feeling, like I'm troubled. Howard?
I'm feeling like I really appreciate what you're doing here, which is I learned a lot, and it's a subject I've been interested in for a long time. I think I heard Jacobitz talk back a long time ago.
Wow.
But in the 70s, maybe? If that's right, what does Jewish ethics say about abortion? That was a topic.
He did all kinds of medical ethics stuff. Absolutely. That was his world.
And although I didn't really learn, somehow I didn't absorb it all, and I learned more about it from Chabad. And I didn't know what the conservative position was. And I was very surprised to hear what the official position of reform is, which apparently isn't going over very well with a lot of people who have heard it, I guess, for the first time.
They don't know about it, and the movement doesn't care. The organization to support social justice goes forward. As Jews, we fight for the right. Well, I stand with them, but don't ask me to come up with a text. We're Reformed Jews. Okay, last word, Panina, then we're going to break. I don't hear you, Panina.
Okay. What I was trying to say is that they removed the stigma of having a child there by allowing out of wedlock, by allowing a woman to have it, to bear a child without having to even pay for it. They do it free. Here, if you want to get inseminated, you need to have $25,000 every pup. And if it doesn't take, you're in trouble. There, it's free. And then the only thing that they ask you is that the father or the mother shouldn't be married. So the child wouldn't be considered a mamzer, a bastard. They want you to, but you don't have to be married, and you do it free. My great niece did it, and she has a young boy now who is 16 years old, beautiful child. She wanted to have another one from the same man. He didn't take, but they gave her in the beginning the option, and they kept it aside for her. so the child should have a brother. It didn't take, but she was given it, and it was free, as long
Okay.
as the father is not married or she herself is not married.
Actually, I'm sure that we would extend this a little bit, and we're going to end with this.
Okay.
The people dealing with artificial insemination must make certain that the father's name is registered so that the baby will never enter into a forbidden marriage with other half children from
Yes.
the same half brother or sister from the same thing. So the Jewish legal thing is very concerned that we know who the father is, no anonymous donors, so that we can make certain that we don't have forbidden relationships in the next generation. Folks, thank you for today.
Okay, you're welcome.
I
It was
didn't
amazing.
think that,
Thank you.
I didn't think that today would be fun, but I did think it would be important.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for
Yeah.
keeping us up
Thank
to date.
you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
Susie.
bye-bye.
See you
Thank you,
Saturday.
Rabbi.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice week.